Hi, folks. Truby Chiaviello here again. I'm the publisher and editor of PRIMO Magazine, and I come to you today with some sad news. Our Lady of Loreto, a beautiful church built by Italian immigrants about 110 years ago, located in Brooklyn, New York, has been destroyed. And this is a very sad development. The Brooklyn Archdiocese got its way, and the church is right now in the final stages of demolition. Here are some recent photos taken of the church by my son Samer. Samer Chiaviello was there in the area last week, and he was able to stop by the church and take these photographs. You can see here that it looks like a serious demolition site. You can see the bulldozer. You can see how the church is boarded up. You can make out that the roof has been removed, and so its interior is gone. It reminds me of what you see when a building has a bomb dropped on it or something. It's all the interior is destroyed. Samer was there also to take some video, and here's a brief video he has. A first-person look at the church and the some of the area that surrounds it.
Coming up on the street right here, as you'll be able to notice, this is Our Lady of Loreto. We did an article for this in PRIMO a few years back, but as you can see right now, it's being demolished. You can see there's wooden scaffolding up there, not scaffolding, barricades that cover the windows. There's no barricade on this, but it's completely hollow. You can see how much of it they've already excavated. This entire sidewalk is completely blocked out. You can't walk on it, you have to walk around. I believe there's more this way too.
Now you hear the drums in the background. This is something you hear all over New York and most every major city. A young man is there probably banging on the back of a plastic pail. But this church is near a subway stop, and back in 2009 I visited there. And Our Lady of Loreto was located at 124 Sackman Street in Brooklyn, New York. And it's part of the Brownsville neighborhood. Some people refer to it as Ocean Hill. Others say it's East New York. But it's right there in Brooklyn. And this neighborhood was once densely populated by Italians. It was a thriving Italian-American neighborhood. I've seen the old photographs of it, and it was a neighborhood full of working families, Italians mostly, and it was really something to see. And 110 years ago, the Italian immigrants settled there. They wanted a church of their own. They wanted a church that spoke their language, that connected them to their unique customs and traditions. And they got together, they volunteered their money, they volunteered their labor, they hired an Italian architect. Many of the men there were skilled bricklayers and carpenters. They had experience in the construction trade. And they just built a very beautiful church. You can see here photos taken. This is from a website devoted to Our Lady of Loreto. It's maintained by Dominic Mandelli, and you can see just the interior here. Here's a shot of the murals. There's a statue of San Innocenzo of Loreto. This photo was taken in 1964. Here's a black and white photo of Mass at the church. This is the 1937. And you can just see it was a very active church, full of devoted Catholics, enthusiastic parishioners. In the 1960s, the church was, this was an independent parish. This was a parish on its own, basically, a Roman Catholic parish. And they turned it over to the Archdiocese. And 40 years from that time, you're talking around 2009, the Archdiocese wanted to tear it down. They did so. Their argument was that the neighborhood, the number of parishioners had declined rapidly, and they thought that the property would be better off if it was turned over to affordable housing. Well, the people who once lived in that neighborhood, these are Italian Americans who lived there. They were baptized in this church. They had their first communion there, their confirmation. They wanted to keep it. And also, this was an effort on their part, which I totally endorsed, to keep a living testament of their ancestors, the people who built this church. This is part of our Italian American legacy. They didn't want to see it destroyed. And a number of groups came to their support, not just PRIMO. You had the Italian Tribune, you had the New York Times, the Daily News, local newspapers and websites. They gave the group considerable publicity. And the preservationists won at the end. The preservationists, I should say, won at the end. The church did agree to keep the church. They were going to tear down the rectory. And what the archdiocese was supposed to do was maintain the church. Now that means if there's a leak, you fix it. If there's peeling paint, you paint it. If there's vermin, you get them out. They didn't do that. They allowed the church to deteriorate rapidly, and so this raises concerns. Was the church ever really was the archdiocese really there to preserve the church? One wonders about Bishop Anthony DiMarzio and others involved in the archdiocese. Did they just want to tear it down? They didn't really, this was just a small gap in their effort to try and, in the final stages, to tear down this church, because they claimed that the church had become deteriorated to such an extent that it became a danger to the community, and so therefore they applied for a permit to demolish it. And about 18 months ago, the group got back together. And this is something I want to say also. You hear a lot about how America is divided. Well, the group of people who wanted to keep this church, they were not just Italian Americans. They were African Americans whose ancestors came from all over Africa and the Caribbean. There were Latinos and Hispanics. There were Asians. There were people from all walks of life, all ethnicities. They all came together because they recognized that Our Lady of Loreto was a beautiful church, one that should have been maintained and kept. And they all came together with petitions, donations, whatever they could to try and stop the demolition of the church. Eventually, the legal process was exhausted. The final appeal was in favor of the archdiocese, and now they're tearing it down. You can see here photos taken by Todd Maisel. He spells his last name Maisel. He's with the Daily News. And you can just see how the interior is being destroyed. I mean, it's very sad. Look at the murals, the statuary, the decorative elements, all beaten down, destroyed. I mean, just consider the time it took to build them, the craftsmanship, the artistry, all for nothing, destroyed in the end. It's very, very sad. This is not the only church that faced its extinction, the only Italian-American church that faced its extinction. Here in this issue, 2009, we report about the efforts of Robin Minella. Now, this is in Duluth, Minnesota. Let me show you a picture of this. This is her right here. I don't know if you can see it. But yeah, this is her. And this is the church she was trying to protect. This is St. Peter's in Duluth, Minnesota. Now, in 2009 was when the local priest and others involved in this local parish wanted to tear down this church. And just like Our Lady of Loreto, this was built by Italian immigrants. This was built by their money, by their labor. It was all them that did this. And she wanted to try and save it. And at the time, it was tough for her. It was tougher for her than it was for those who wanted to preserve Our Lady of Loreto. Now, I wanted both churches to survive. But I thought if there was one of two of them that was going to face its demolition, it would be her. Because she was running into some serious backlash against her efforts among those that wanted to tear it down. But in the end, what happened was, with St. Peter's, an artist by the name of Jeffrey T. Larson bought it. He bought the church, he kept it as it was, and he turned it into a very nice art academy. And, one wonders why that couldn't have also been done with Our Lady of Loreto. One wonders why, the Brooklyn Archdiocese couldn't find a way to preserve this church. You know, this area of Brooklyn hasn't faced the Renaissance of New York yet, and that you've seen in other places in Manhattan, other parts of Brooklyn, other parts of the boroughs there. You know, I've been there. My son has been there recently, and it's still knee deep in poverty and urban decay and dispossession. You know, people need more than just a roof over their heads. They need art to look at. They need faith, and you know, one wonders why the archdiocese couldn't have turned the church over to a Protestant denomination. It's not unusual for a Catholic church to be converted to a Baptist church or house of worship. Perhaps another denomination that's prevalent in the area could utilize the church. But that's not the case. What we see here really is the parish. If it had made one mistake, it turned itself over to the archdiocese. The church was in their possession now, and this is a lesson for all of us. If you build something, try to hold on to it, because if you turn it over to the archdiocese or the local government, it's not theirs. They really don't care in the end, and they'll tear it down if the moment arises. And this is very, very unfortunate. So the silver lining here is the people who really work to try to save it. You know, kudos to them. They worked very hard. I'm a witness to their efforts. They should all be commended for what they did. Again, they come from all walks of life. They just loved the church. They thought it was a beautiful structure. They loved its legacy and its heritage. They wanted to preserve it. And, you know, kudos also goes to the Italian immigrants who built this church. You know, they came to America, they were immigrants, they wanted to build, you know, they wanted to create something for our country, which is almost in direct contradiction to what we see today among the members of the archdiocese, the officials there, the local government, that seem to be hell-bent on tearing things down. You know, you see this all over the place now. And this is very sad. So we learn from this situation that we have to fight. We have to fight to preserve our heritage. We have to fight to preserve our legacy. There'll be other battles that come along. We may lose this one, but we may win others. And we just have to do what we can. You know, when we fight a fight like this, like we try to do in preserving Our Lady of Loreto, we find that other ethnic groups come together with us because, you know, Irish Americans, Jewish Americans, African Americans, Polish Americans, Asians, Hispanics, anywhere will realize that, you know, if they can tear down a church or some other structure, then what's stopping them from tearing structures of other ethnicities, other other elements of heritage. So it's very important that we all try to keep up the fight to preserve our legacy, to preserve our heritage. You can read the text of this presentation on our website at www.onlineprimo.com. I'm going to list the names of the people who were in the effort to preserve Our Lady of Loreto because, you know, I want to pay tribute to their efforts. They are to be commended. It was a very tough battle that they faced, and they did the best they could, and they almost won it. So I want to commend them for it. So until the next time we talk about our Italian-American connection, I'm Truby Chiaviello. Thank you for watching, and thank you for reading PRIMO Magazine.